All right, good afternoon. Can you hear me well? No, somebody said no. So I was told that there was a special microphone here.
That's for recording you, but not projecting.
Okay, so let's do this again. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, so I have an accent. It's real. I'm not faking it. I'm not faking it. Okay, so it's not that I'm from Brooklyn, I'm pretending to be exotic. I'm really exotic because, like Father said, I am from Rome, the real Rome, the one in Italy. You know, there are 11 Romes in the United States, so, and they have nothing to do with us. They wish, but they are not. And seriously, I want to thank Father Andrew and Laura, of course, for inviting me and partners, our organization, to speak with you and to share some of our learning, things that we have found out across the country, practice that work, and things that could help you out. I hope that they could help you. I've been here in the United States now for 29 years, and most of my time I work with Partners for Sacred Places. Now, I am sure I'm going to screw this up because, let's see. We put together a nice little presentation, and if you're interested, of course, you can get this. I want to start a minute or two about talking about our organization, so just put things in a context. Like Father said, we are one of the two largest preservation organizations in America. And if you're familiar with historic preservation, it's basically the discipline that helps buildings to be restored and preserved for the future. And we are the largest dedicated exclusively to sacred places. So we only work with churches, synagogue, mosque, and temples. We are a secular organization. Primarily at the beginning, we were very much about architecture, but we'll see after a few years things start changing. And now we really are involved in the connection between the sacred place, the building, the actual building, and of course the community around. We will see that in a second. We have worked with over 100,000 houses of worship since our inception back in 1989. And it is a big number. I've been working with many of them, so it makes me feel a little old, but you know, the reality is that. And what we do a lots of things. We have programs, and now I'm going to say one thing for the bishops and fathers in the room and the lay leaders. We have the largest fund for sacred places, so we gave money like drunken sailors. Okay, we have the National Fund, which is the largest grant program for historic house of worship. Now, historic for us doesn't mean that you have to be landmark or to be on the National Register and all that kind of things. You have to be at least 40 or 50 years older, the buildings. And it's something I think can be interesting to many of you. This is a national program, and I think I have a couple of slides about that. We also do consultation, so we are also consultants. So we help congregations, churches, dioceses, archdioceses with many different projects, from raising funds for capital campaigns to asset mapping, community engagement, charrette design, strategic visioning, a lot. So basically anything that a congregation or a diocese needs, we can do it for you. It's pretty much a lot. It's a lot. My job is oversee all this work, all the grants, all the programs, all the consulting, and all of that. So we really are at your service, and I hope that this conversation can help you to understand a very important thing is that you are not alone. Because there is one thing that I've learned in this journey of mine, working with sacred places, is that there is a loneliness, especially among the clergy. Because everybody comes to you, and you have to counsel them and support them and pray for them and all that. And then you have to fix your building. The boiler doesn't work well, right? The ceiling and the roof start leaking, all that kind of issues. And it's difficult. Lots of these projects are complicated, takes a lot of money to fix those problems. And so the loneliness, but you are not alone. We are there to help you in many different ways. Let's see if, this is good, it's working. I spoke too soon. I'm an Apple guy. Okay, so this is not Apple. So things that we believe that old and historic house of worship are not, is not there. But we don't believe that they are an albatross around your neck. One of the things that I constantly hear is that, oh, well, these old buildings, why don't we knock it down and we build a new one? Or the church is the people, is not the building. It is true, but trying to, to do a food pantry in January outside if you don't have a building, just give it a try, especially if you live in this region or in others. So you need to have a building. A building is an anchor for your community, and we will see that also. We also believe, and we can prove that your congregation, your building, has an impact in the community that goes beyond what you can even suspect. And I'm talking about money. If I tell you that your work is worth millions to the community, you probably won't believe me. But then you'll be wrong, because we're going to show you how this is the case. This is the National Fund, what I was saying. We have it's close to $100 million that we're trying to give away. And we're giving away, yes, indeed. We have given away only 26, 27 million so far. And that's why I say we're trying to give them like a drunken sailor money, okay? It is not simple. It's a very competitive program. It's a national program. The grants goes up to $500,000. So the smaller is 50,000, the largest is $500,000. It's a matching grant program, so it means the congregation needs to match at least a portion of that, because we want the congregation to have the skin in the game. It's very, very important, okay? It's also important for another reason, is because if you get one of our grants, you do get the seal of approval of the preservation community, which means any other funders will pay attention to you. And that's really something that matters. As today, every dollar we're giving away has generated at least $3. So that's something also to consider. But for us, it's important to have an historic building, okay? Like I said, not a building that is on the landmark book, but is built for at least, it's been 40 or 50 years old. But also that you work with the community. That, to us, is a key. The work with the community. The community, I don't mean just your congregation, right? I'm not talking about the Byzantine Catholic people. You have to be able and willing to work with the wider community, which usually churches do that. If you have a food pantry, and if somebody comes to ask for help, you don't say, well, if you are not Byzantine Catholic, we're not going to give you food. You're going to go and starve to death. Churches don't work like that, right? Don't think in that way. But I want to underline that it's extremely important to have that community, like we call it, community engagement. The grant is for capital projects, so it's for the building. Things like AC, the boiler, an elevator, the roof, the windows, things like that. We are going to try to help you and give money. So let's see the next one. Going back here. All right, just to give you some idea, this is about things that I said. There are in America about between 350,000, 375,000 houses of worship that fell under our purview in terms of mission. We don't count storefront churches. They are important. They play a role in many communities, but that's not what is our work about it. And it's interestingly that really half of this number, 350,000, were funded before 1950. Probably many of you are from then, and the rest after that. How this thing started? So in 1998, before my time, Partners has this idea to figure it out. What is the relationship between building and community? So with the help of the University of Pennsylvania, interestingly enough, is anybody from Pennsylvania in the room, by the way? See, I bet somebody, yeah. And it's a very important school. But interestingly enough, was the School of Social Work and not the School of Religion at the university, we started this study, national study, that told us something pretty amazing. It told us that 81% of people that use that building during the week don't worship there on Saturday and Sunday. I repeat. I see somebody say, 81% of people that use that building during the week don't worship there on Saturday and Sundays. So what does it mean? It means that these places, your places, churches, are involved with the community. Think about if you have a concert, or if you have a school, or if you have, you rent your space for a dance group, if you have arts, if you have a shelter. All the things that churches tend to do, like I said before, are open to everybody and for everybody, right? But it's interesting, 81% people. And another thing is, I always find interesting, 75% of congregation use their buildings to meet basic human needs. Now, you're all people of faith in the room. We are not talking about, at least we hope, we are not talking about crazy thing. We are talking about basic human needs. Food, shelter, and clothing. That's really, really, really important. So, oops, I'm going to, all right. See, I knew that was going to happen. Is anybody going to help me here? This thing has got nuts. All right.
Do you need to go back?
Yeah. All right. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. So thank you. Don't record this portion. That was embarrassing. All right. In 2016, we said to ourselves, and I was part of this, we said, okay, this is amazing, 81%. Let's do the study again. Let's see if how the situation has changed in 18 years. Well, we did it, and guess what? The numbers were different. The numbers were different. From 81%, now we went up to 87%. So 87% of people that use the building don't worship there on Saturday and Sunday, pretty much. And I am sure now, after almost a decade, if we go back and do the same study, okay, always national study, we will have the same things. But then we thought something, okay, well, those buildings are de facto community centers. If 87% of people that use the building don't belong to that congregation, don't worship there, this building, it goes beyond a spiritual center, right? It is indeed a community center. Now, in Italian, there is a beautiful proverb, a saying that says, riportare la chiesa al centro del villaggio. Some of you might speak Italian. It means to bring back the church at the center of the village. And that was something I really love about this study, because it gave us, in economic terms, in secular ways, the proof that churches are not obsolete, they are not something of the past, but rather are the center of the village again. And for village, I mean cities like New York City and Chicago and Los Angeles too, not just a small town. A metaphorical village, of course. That's really something important. Never a study of that nature was undertaken before that. So we said, okay, what is our next step? So the next step for us was creating what we call the economic halo effect of a congregation. You know, the halo, the one I don't have, I will never have. By the way, that's why I was in the minor seminar in the Vatican. They said, no, you're not good for us. True story. But what is the economic halo effect? Basically, studying up to 55 factors of the life of a congregation, we can establish what is your economic impact, what is the economic impact of a congregation with the community. What is worth it in financial terms? And back in 2016, the average of these 100 churches that we use as a pilot was 1.7 million. Back in 2016. So the economic impact of those 100 churches, each one of them, the average is 1.7 million. The largest economic impact we ever recorded is in New York, is a Methodist church, St. Paul and St. Andrew. And their economic impact is about $32 million per year. Yeah, they have a feeding program that feeds about 250,000 people every year. The second one, because you say, well, big deal, is in New York, of course. Well, the second one, record 31 million, it comes from Asheville, North Carolina. They ain't a big city. It's not a big place. And it's $31 million. The Basilica of St. Lawrence, a Roman Catholic place. But it's a very touristic place. Does anybody in the room knows why St. Lawrence Basilica in Asheville is an important church from an architectural point of view? Somebody does, yes?
Because the dome is self-supporting.
Yeah, it was designed by, very good, it was designed by Gustavino, which is a very famous Spanish-American architect. He did a lot of work also in New York City, a Grand Central Station. It's a unique building. And he's also buried there, which is very unusual for American churches to have, the builder buried inside the building. So it's 31 million because this place is so important and famous. Lots of tourists goes there to visit. Now, tourists goes there and they spend the night. And where they sleep? In hotels, right? And where they eat? In restaurants. And what they do? They buy souvenirs. That is something goes back to the local economy. Think about if there is a wedding here at St. Mary, and the groom is from Minneapolis, and he brings his friend, his family, and they stay here for a week. Oops.
Computer down?
That's not my computer. I don't know what it is. Okay, I think I'll keep talking because I know this stuff. So, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, all right. Okay. So, thank you. So I was saying if somebody got married here at St. Mary and the family and friends come here and they're going to spend a night or 2 or 3 or 4 here in town and they eat, again, this goes back in the economy. Also, St. Mary, if it's going through renovation and capital improvement, well, they hire local people, right? And so they help the economy. So again, we count up to 55 factors. For instance, green space is also something very valuable. If a church has a campus with a yard or some grass or whatever, the national park has a value for every flowers and tree and bushes that you might have on campus. There is a value. Another thing is the work that a priest does. How many times the clergy in the room have helped during your ministry to keep a couple together? You counsel the couple to avoid divorce, right? Well, there is an economic value about that. So this is something extremely important. But why is it important? I think it's important for two reasons. Number one is give the congregation the idea that you are worth something, that what you do, it means something. Not just as a, passport for the future when we thank you, when we're going to heaven. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a...
You can keep talking.
Maybe I think let's do it without this. What do you guys think? This is becoming a distraction, right? So it's easier. All right, thank you, everybody. Don't worry about it. So it's very important, but also there is the worth sense, the sense of worth. That what you're doing, it matters. And the other things that I think is very important, I experience it is very important, is when you are trying to raise money, for instance, for a capital campaign, and you try to ask for a gift or apply for a grant, and they say, well, you're a church. You are kind of a parasite. Maybe they might not use those words, but that's what it might imply. And you say, wait a minute, parasite, we give back 2 millions every year to this community. So this way that we do it is obviously this is being copyrighted between us and the university. It's been presented officially at the Brookings Institute. So this is an official thing. It's a real thing. Okay, it's really, really important. It's maybe a little bit harder to understand at the beginning as a philosophy and as approach, but it's something that we do hundreds of these economic impact study every year. Is really important. So the theme of this conversation today is preserving your building. Many times I hear people saying, you know, older buildings are just a problem because they are very expensive. Well, they might be, but first of all, is the cheaper building that you can ever have is the one that you already have. Trust me. Trust me. Think about how much it would cost to knock it down and then build a new church. And then the new church that you build is going to stay up for 100 years, 150 years, like the one that are more historic. I doubt. A true story. She agrees with me. I like you a lot. A friend of mine, a priest in Chicago, a Roman Catholic priest, was moved from an historic parish, St. Matthias, in the north side, to a fancy new building. I think one of the last archdioceses built in the town of Inverness, which is a pretty wealthy neighborhood outside Chicago. And so he invited me to show me that this 4 years old building already was leaking all over. In front of the altar, there was a big bucket. 4 years only. Okay, so that's why the historic building are the strongest buildings, because they were built very well. Now, another thing I ran a lot into is the issue of nobody cares. The world out there doesn't care. Well, it's not true. I can tell you, stop being yours. And amazing, I mean, the bishop and priest in the room amazes me, like often churches don't have they don't have much faith. Faith in others, faith in what can be done, and yes, faith in God. Because, you know, last year, how much money is being given for charity and philanthropy in this country? 592 billion with the B. There is an institute called the U.S. Giving Institute that records every year all the data in philanthropy. Is a lot. 592 billion. And the money, and every year, keep going up. Because no matter what, Americans are generous. And no, money are not given for tax purposes. Because how is the tax code today with the reform from 2017? At least if you don't give $10 million, you won't see any real substantial difference. So people really give because they're good. And guess what? Guess which one is the number one reason for giving in America? Who can guess? Number one reason for giving? Church, religion. And I wish that these things were still working, so there's a nice slide that proves this. The second one is human services, and the third one is education. How often, though, a church or a religious institution has also an education component or does human services? And the first one, religion, is almost half of it. So people do care about it. Think about it. I'm looking at the lay people and, of course, the clergy as well. You gave to your parish every year. Well, multiply that for all these people around the world. And I'm telling you, the people do care about it. Now, the problem churches have, sometimes they don't know how to ask them money, how to ask money for. Look, I am not a fundraiser. Father Andrew can tell you I'm not a fundraiser. But I raise almost $200 million for churches. $200 million. So people do give to churches. You need to know how to ask. You need to have a compelling reason for giving, right? All that kind of things are really, really important. And another slide that is here, and I can show it to you, said cycle of scarcity and cycle of abundance. That it is one of the challenges. Churches tend to live in a cycle of scarcity. Nobody cares about us. Nobody is giving. We are not important enough anymore. My advice, and I have done this for 20 years, and I keep doing it every day of my life, to churches and synagogue, is switch that. Leave the cycle of scarcity. We can prove you, and I think I did a little bit scientifically, so you don't have to take my words for it. This is science. That people care and people give, and that a church is worth it a lot. Go into a cycle of abundance. We have assets. If I walk in a church, I can tell you, of course, I have a professional deformation, but all the assets that are around me, you might have a parking lot, you have a big, beautiful hall, you have other spaces on campus that can be used by people for many different things. You have clergy, you have lay people, the volunteers that are so important in the life of a congregation. So switch from a cycle of scarcity into a cycle of abundance. It's really, really important. There are other ways to keep these churches alive. Okay, for instance, do what we call a community-wide campaign. Raise money for your building so you can help your congregation and you can help the community. That's why we call it community-wide campaign. We don't just call it capital campaign. Because money are raised from the wider community. Foundation, government agency, believe it or not, they do give money. Here in Indiana, for instance, you have a very large organization. It's called Indiana Landmark. They are a very good friend of ours. We help them to establish their grant program. They give grants up to $400,000 for places like the one that you manage and the one that is your spiritual home. So they're out there, possibilities are out there, so you need to go get that. Another thing is creating separate organization, which purpose is to help you to raise money to preserve the building. And I know the bishop, especially in the Catholic world, don't like that very much. Because, forgive me, if I'm going to say something, I'll try to be gentle. It's a lot about control. People are afraid to lose control. You know, but legally, you can set up a separate organization that will help the parish and the priest to raise money to preserve the building and to help your congregation and community without making you lose control of the decisions, of the centrality of Christ's project that you might have, right? So there are ways of doing. So there are many solutions, you know, for this. So let's try to recap what I said, because I know it's hot, and a lot of you probably are I am dying, so I'm very hot. So, well, I'm in a good place if I die. Lots of you can give me a last ride. Is the truth. The world out there likes us. We need to go get the money because there is a lots of money. There are lots of alternatives for us. You worth it a lot as an institution, and preserving your building is important because those buildings also represent your heritage, who you are as an organization of faith, as a community of faith. They were built by your ancestors, people that came here. Nowadays, immigrants are not popular in this country. And being an immigrant, I'm going to say that. We are not very popular anymore. Yet this country has been built by immigrants. And those churches, they are so beautiful. The Italian built it, the Irish built it, the German built it, the Ukrainian built it, the Russian built it. They're being built by people that really, really cared about it. And I think it's important. It is important. Learn how to maximize the space of your, that you have. Rent it out. Invite people. Learn how to use your space so that can generate a revenue for your parish. So there are many different ways of doing it. So if we preserve the buildings, preserving our parishes will also preserve, help the community and strengthen those communities. A quick story before I wrap up my comments here. There's a church in Chicago. It used to be a very bad place. So in Wabash, south side of Chicago, the pastor was sent there to close this church. And I can say it because he gave me permission to use it. The name of the church is Queen Chapel. It's a black church. And there were maybe 30 members. And outside this church, there was prostitution, drug dealing, and all the worst things. Well, the pastor took our suggestion to heart, went to the city, and he asked if he could have permit to remove the cars of the patron of the Lady of the Night, if you know what I mean. And the permit was given. So in few years now, there are like 600 people in that parish. The area is completely clean. There's no drugs, nothing. They also raised $6 million to restore that building. This is an example of a church, of a pastor that had the courage to go out and ask for help and work with the community to improve the community itself, restore the building, and at the end of the day, keep speaking of Jesus. Because at the end of the day, and that it is the most important thing. You know, my suggestion to every priest or pastor or minister, they ask me, what can I do to help my church, to strengthen my parish? I always say, be proud to be a church. Don't be embarrassed to be a church. You are a church, act like one. Fix the building, help the community, and do God's work. Thank you. The power being, Father Andrew is telling me that we have about 10 minutes for questions, if you have any. Don't be shy. Okay.
Have you ever worked on a project where you took a historical church from one location and moved it somewhere else?
Actually, we have. Yes, we have. They're complicated projects, you know, but everybody heard what he said. So yes, you know, there is, you have to work with architects and all that. We do have a magazine. So Laura, you know our magazine, right? And years ago, there was on the cover of the magazine, a church with wheels. So we literally put churches, wheels under the building to be moved. Yeah, we did. Any other questions?
The question is a little bit of a different situation, but appreciate your insights on this. I'm from the Philadelphia area. I sit on a library board in a city that's actually in bankruptcy, which is kind of unique for cities, city of Chester, and it has some churches that are, some that are probably just abandoned at this point. That are, they're there in the city. I know that there are other economically distressed cities, Gary.
Right.
There's a famous city church that's probably been abandoned for.
Right.
Many
I know
years.
that church.
Do you have? I know that's a different situation than with a congregation that's active or struggling. But do you have any particular comments about with urban renewal or just helping some of these economically distressed cities? What if there's anything unique about those kind of abandoned churches?
Everybody heard that question. So those situations are very dramatic, of course, because if the city itself is in bankrupt, it's complicated. It's really, really complicated. You can't save each one of them. My suggestion would be to focus on one or two, the one that are in a better shape, and trying to see if right now, look, until 4 or 5 months ago, I could have told you that there is federal money for projects like this. Right now, I don't know if there is. There is a big grant program. There was a federal grant program called Save American Treasure that could have helped situations like that. But of course, this program is going to be put away. So I think an effort could be done to save maybe one or two of this big building, but unfortunately not all of them, especially if there is no congregation. Now, if it's owned by a diocese, the conversation could be, can we readapt this building into something else? Not in a church, not being a church anymore, but maybe being a community center, maybe being something else that could help the community, because foundations are interested a lot in that. In this area, you might not know, but Indiana has the largest foundation in the world. I'm going to repeat this to you. Indiana is the largest foundation in the world, which is the Lilly Endowment. As today, they are awarded $88 billion with the B. Okay, they are bigger than Gates Foundation. And half of it goes to religion. That's our $100+ million that come for our program, it comes from them. So try to save a building, go talk to them. Lilly Endowment has three main interests: religion, community, and Indiana itself. I think if you have all, the perfect trifecta, churches, community, and religion, they could be interested in helping. So that it is the best things on the spot on a generally speaking, case. Ma'am.
So how do we apply for a grant from your organization?
Go on our webpage. I don't know, Father, if anybody's interested in this PowerPoint, if they could get it.
Circulate it, and we can run some more of these slides tomorrow. We can
Perfect.
triage the tech issues and integrate it tomorrow.
Perfect. So go on our webpage, and then there is a link that takes you to another page, which is the National Fund, and explain how to do that. Once you do that, when you apply, say that, I was with Gianfranco's presentation, and so I will remember, and, we'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? There's another one back there.
From a negative point of view,
Uh-oh.
are there factors that in general would make your foundation say these factors make a building not worth investing?
If your building is open and helping people, right? For me, it's worth it saving. It's worth it helping. I don't like if a place is openly bigot or racist. And believe it or not, there are churches in some parts of the country that are openly bigot and racist. And I don't think it's your case, of course. But to me, the most important things when I talk to a bishop or a pastor is to understand if he is interested really in helping the community. Then we'll find a way to fix the building. Absolutely. Wasn't the negative. It was good. It wasn't negative. Thank you, Father. Any other? No? Well, you've been a very good audience. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.